So time has come, so I want to start the session. Welcome to the session on G7 Alliance of Nature Positive Economy. Thank you very much for your attendance here, our distinguished audience and the honorable speakers. And my name is Naoko Hamashima. I'm today's session's host. And I am from Ministry of Environment, Japan, and I am the director of the Office for Mainstreaming Biodiversity, which maybe describes my task well. And this session is about technologies, products, services, and business models realizing nature positive economies. And then let me start the session with Daidara Poji over there. How cute he or she is. This is a recently born nature positive character from Japan. And here's today's agenda. Let me, it doesn't go to the next slide. Oh, okay, we had it. Sorry. This is today's agenda. And to begin with, I'm gonna give a brief introduction of the G7 AMP. And after that, we'll have three presentations from our Japanese companies and three presentations from some organizations, including WBCSD and KCMC, KDRM, and OECD. And Q&A sessions between speakers and myself will also be interspersed. And so I think we can explore our next action toward nature positive economy through this session. And then finally, we will have a closing remarks from the representative from Italian government, the next G7 presidency. And let me introduce about G7 AMP first. G7 AMP, G7 Alliance on Nature Positive Economies, was born in Sapporo. Dominic, thank you very much for coming. Your sheet is over there. Thank you so much. Yeah, you can come. Thank you. G7 AMP was born in Sapporo as a forum to share knowledge and create information networks. And there were two sessions or two activities this year. One is sharing information on business opportunities, which will be presented later. And the other one is share and disseminate member countries' opinions on disclosure. And we already issued a discussion paper in June. And you can see the list of the possible topics over there at the bottom half of the presentation. And so the G7 presidency in each year will take a lead to determine the themes of each year. So please keep your eyes peeled. And then here, I'd like to announce the recruitment of the G7 AMP members. We, the G7 governments, established this alliance as the one inclusive in nature. That means open to any ambitious entities, including countries, or businesses, or NGOs, or NPOs, or other institutions. So we would like to ask you for your help to make this information network stronger and more effective through your participation. And then, I listed the current members over there, but new organizations are joining day by day. So please check the latest updates on the website through the URL. And here is the brief introduction of the G7 AMP workshop on the business cases held in September. This workshop was organized by KDRM and jointly held by G7 AMP. And archive videos are also available on the website through the URL over there, so please check it later. And opening remarks was given by the Minister of the Environment, Japan, and we had keynote speeches and 9 business cases and expert comments on them, including Dominic-san and Katia-san, who's going to be a speaker in this session later. And at the end, we had an emphatical declaration from Ms. Ross of Confindustria, a B7 member from Italy, saying that they're going to have this kind of workshop again next year. And here is the list of the presenters of that in that workshop. Due to the time constraint today, I won't go into each case, but 9 representative companies from each country gave an kind of powerful presentation, actually. And among these presentations, 3 Japanese cases will be presented later on this session. And before that, let me go over several common lessons learned from the case studies. For example, first one is importance of data tech, and the second one is importance of integrated or multi-sectoral approach, or the significance of rules, for example, or evaluation rules or disclosure or standards itself, and findings on multi-benefit again, and importance of data tech again, and finding on corporate value. I hope that these kind of learning can be a driver to work toward nature positive economy together. And then let's move on to the presentation on actual cases. And we have 2 recorded presentations and 1 in person. First, Shimizu Corporation kindly recorded their presentation, so let me play it. Just a moment, please. Where's the, okay, let me share the, そっか。No. 清水、これか。これを、このまま share? No. I should open first. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
くださいね。まだ少々お待ちください。少々お待ちください。オープンし。切らなきゃよかった。いえ。です。まだ。そうですね。もう一回シェアします。すいません。Sorry。安心して。
Corporation. Today, I'd like to introduce our simulation system called UENet. UENet is a great tool to provide evidence to connect new and existing ecological networks in an urban area. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce our organization. Shimizu Corporation was established in 1804. We are a diversified general constructing company which provides services for architecture, civil engineering, real estate, renewable energy development, and so on. Shimizu Corporation and our group companies create values that were ahead of the times through constant self-transformation and challenges that go beyond the framework of the construction business and through co-creation with diverse partners. We are a contributor to realize a sustainable future where people can feel happy. One of the guidelines for conducting corporate activities is Shimizu Beyond Zero 2050, our group's environmental vision. It was formulated in 2021, and this is the axis upon which we return when conducting various businesses. In Shimizu Beyond Zero 2050, Shimizu Group aims for sustainable futures of zero carbon society, resource recycling society, and society that coexists harmoniously with nature. By 2050, we are not only to omit negative environmental impacts from all our own business activities, but also to provide positive environmental values to customers and society that extends beyond zero. For society that coexists harmoniously with nature, green infrastructure plays a significant role for Nature Positive. We are practicing under the group concept of Green Infrastructure Plus to leave an abundant environment for future generations. The UENet is a simulation program that contributes to recover and regenerate ecological networks in an urban area with scientific evidence, which aligns with the goals of our environmental vision. There is an opportunity when planning a new landscape, because landscape connectivity is important from the perspective of maintaining and recovering the habitable environment. However, there are some issues. For example, in urban areas, biological distribution information is scarce at the planning phase, and there are no quantitative indicators to assess newly planned ecological network. In order to answer these issues, we have developed the UENet. It can evaluate new ecological networks, which is a new connectivity created by new landscapes as a continuous green space along with existing landscapes. The UENet uses high-resolution data from satellite and applies habitat evaluation procedure to quantitatively and visually analyze and evaluate the habitat suitability of indicator species in a surrounding environment of business site. As you can see in the sample, habitability is shown in gradation from low to high. The effect of the created landscape on the ecological network of the surrounding area will be evaluated based on quantitative and objective indicators from the perspective of the quality and spatial layout of the green space. In short, this evaluation system can provide evidence for ecosystem consideration as the beginning of landscape planning or the conceptual phase. The uniqueness of the UENet is expressed here. Many methods have been invented in recent years to quantitatively evaluate ecological networks. However, existing methods were mostly focused on figuring out appropriate placement and size of new landscape, as well as effects within the site. In comparison, the UENet recognizes the differences of landscape types and their qualities as a planning tool. In addition, effects beyond the site to neighboring areas are evaluated as ripple effects. The simplified simulation procedures are as follows. Firstly, an analyst creates a model of habitability of index species, which is determined based on existing landscapes within the project site and its surroundings. Secondly, the analyst evaluates existing ecological networks using high-resolution satellite data. Lastly, quantitative evaluation of ripple effect can be done with new landscape plans, such as A, B, C, as shown here. This is an example of simulation results, which compared Plan A, B, and C with 3 different index species. The results are shown in a bar graph on the far right. And as you can see, Plan C is the best landscape plan, since it is effective for multiple species. According to the result, biotope was chosen as a regenerative landscape method, which includes landscape types of grassland, deciduous trees, and water. You can imagine how the quantitative and visual comparison helps the decision-making process among all stakeholders. The result of the UINET simulation was monitored at the biotope site for assurance. In fact, different species arrived at the site after 1 to 4 years. This proved that the UINET simulation was successful. The UINET has been used for many projects such as urban developments, redevelopments, and area management. We hope to utilize this unique simulation system to recover and regenerate many other urban landscapes with our regenerative construction methods as biotope in a package. By doing so, Shimizu Group is to contribute to make nature positive possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kaneko-san. And could you help me with the next movie? And during getting his help, I'm gonna wrap up this her presentation. I think you can see that the Shimizu Corporation is now utilizing their technologies to visualize the habitability, as I said, habitability for the urban creatures. And I believe that should be contribute to sustainably mature city. And so then as for the next movie, let's see the Sumitomo Chemicals video as well. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
はい、シェアが。
I'm Nobuaki Mito, Senior Managing Executive Officer and President of the Health and Crop Science sector at Sumitomo Chemical. Sumitomo Chemical is a global leader in developing, creating solutions for health and crop science, bringing products to our customers through a business philosophy that drives innovation and integration. With a century-long history of proven reliability, a focus on quality control, and a commitment to the world society and the environment, Sumitomo Chemical is well recognized around the world for products that create and deliver value to customers. One of our most important company values is Jiri Rita Koshi Chinyo. The Jiri Rita principle is an important aspect of the Sumitomo business spirit that declares our business must benefit not just our own interest, but communities and society at large. Sumitomo Chemical can trace its origin to 1915, when the company developed an innovative solution to resolve an air pollution problem created by a copper smelting operation at the Beshi copper mine in Ehime, Japan. we removed the sulfur from the copper ore, which was the cause of the air pollution problem. But we also used the sulfur to create a calcium superphosphate fertilizer that could be applied on farms to increase agricultural production. This combination of technology, wisdom, passion, and the sense of mission was utilized to create both economic value and social value. As a large global company, Sumitomo Chemical has a broad portfolio of businesses in many different industries. They include IT-related chemicals, energy and functional materials, essential chemicals and plastics, pharmaceuticals, and health and crop sciences. I'm very proud to lead the health and crop sciences sector in my role as Senior Managing Executive Officer. Within this sector, our two agro-solutions business divisions generate about 80% of the sector's revenue, so they are a very important area of focus for us. Sumitomo Chemical has two primary product families for the agro-solution business: crop protection chemicals and biorationals. Our conventional crop protection products incorporate safe and reliable chemistries, while our biorational product line includes naturally derived microbial crop protection products, plant growth regulators, and biostimulant technologies. We develop, commercialize, and promote both types of products, which help us contribute to regenerative agriculture. Today's agriculture industry supplies food and grains to feed our growing global population through development of various technologies such as nutrition input, cultivar, and pesticides. But modern agriculture has some negative aspects to it, including soil erosion, greenhouse gas emission, its impact on biodiversity, and water system contamination. Sumitomo Chemical believes it is time to change the system for regenerative agriculture, and we are working toward that goal. Not only do we need to further improve productivity, but we also need to create sustainable cropping systems, which contribute to carbon neutrality, biodiversity, soil health, and cleaner water systems. Three important areas that Sumitomo Chemical is addressing are soil erosion, water contamination, and greenhouse gas emissions. The Dust Bowl damaged the ecology and agriculture of the American and Canadian prairies in the 20th century. Today, there are many other examples of soil erosion in agricultural lands. As a result, soil erosion remains an ongoing global concern. Water system contamination, including runoff of nutrients and chemicals, is also a serious problem to which agriculture contributes. A dead zone in Gulf of Mexico is one of these examples. Inflow of nutrients into the Gulf triggers algae blooms that choke off oxygen in water and create dead zone where life cannot survive. Approximately 20% of greenhouse gases result from agriculture and forestry. Global crop production produces greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide through agricultural operations, nitrous oxide by oxidation of nitrogen, and methane from paddy rice fields. While crop absorbs carbon dioxide through photosynthesis, carbohydrate produced by plant can be oxidized again if the soil cannot retain organic carbon in its structure. While soil is a foundation of all agriculture, it is also a foundation of all life on Earth. With a strong focus on both durability and sustainability, Sumitomo Chemical is actively working toward developing and promoting innovative products that contribute to long-term soil health. A vascular mycorrhizal fungi, or AMF, are a type of fungi that have a symbiotic relationship with plant roots. They receive carbohydrates from the host plant, and their hyphae facilitate water and nutrient absorption soil health by improving its physical, chemical, and biological health while promoting carbon sequestration. Our microapply technology includes multiple species of AMF that together enhance plant productivity and soil health in agriculture and horticulture. Microapply products offer a wide range of benefits to both the plant and the soil. These products promote root mass expansion, improve water acquisition, and increase nutrient efficiency, which provides better yields and harvest quality. Additionally, they enhance the overall health of the soil by restructuring and stabilizing it, while also improving water infiltration and holding capacity, as well as enriching soil microbiota. This benefits both farms and water systems. Finally, microapply improves water and nutrient uptake in plants and receive carbohydrate in return. A portion of these carbohydrates are stored in the soil and increase the level of organic carbon. This is called carbon sequestration. Our approach provides multiple solutions to sustain agricultural land with both crop protection products and biorationals, maintaining high levels of productivity. These products also enrich the soil and create a foundation for long-term soil health, leaving land healthier for future generations. In addition, our work benefits not only agricultural lands, but also natural recovery of the environment. The right inputs in these agricultural lands also help keep water system cleaner and reduce greenhouse gases. Sumitomo Chemical's various business activities, which are intended to promote nature positive, are driven by the Sumitomo business spirit and our focus on sustainability. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present Sumitomo Chemical's approach to regenerative agriculture. I hope you found the presentation to be informative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very informative, actually. And I think you could see that the Sumitomo Chemicals as an chemical industry who had been selling agrochemical is now taking an action to reduce or eliminate them with their new technologies. And then I am pleased to welcome Ms. Dr. Funabashi, who is a CEO of SynecO. Sorry for waiting if you haven't here waiting for a long time. Funabashi-san, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, and hello, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm representing SynecO Inc. today, and SynecO Inc. is a new Sony Group company, which was established a few years ago. Can I change the slide? Okay, that was the opposite direction. It's still not working. But I cannot do on my own, actually. This?
Before microphone. No,
Sorry for the Japanese technology. Okay, so I'll say next slide, please. But okay, here is a good one. So SynecO Inc. is a new Sony Group company, and it was established a few years ago. And it is actually the first Sony Group company that fosters nature positive solutions as the main purpose and value. And our nature positive solution is based on the technologies called SynecO culture and augmented ecosystem. And it may be something new for you. And today I'd like to introduce these new technologies. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. It's not reacting. Okay, this is the figure from the famous Bending the Curve paper published in Nature. And on the blue arrow, it advocates the importance of conservation and regeneration of biodiversity compared to the most degraded states in 2022. But on the red arrow, you can also think of a better practice that goes beyond the historical level, or even constructs high biodiversity beyond the natural state. And this is what we call the augmentation scenario. And the major driver for this is actually human activities. Next slide, please. And you can see here the image of natural ecological succession from bare land to grassland, shrubs, woodland, and climax forest. And on the right side, the idea of augmented ecosystems is that human impact, such as farming, energy production, and other constructions, positively enhance biodiversity with proper assessment and supportive technologies. Next, please. And the scientific rationale for this new paradigm has been already published in many scientific papers I published myself, including a perspective from Nature Research Journal. And I cannot get into details in this short presentation, but showing some references for the scientists here. Next, please. So let's see more practically the essential basis of SynecO culture and more generally augmented ecosystems. It is based on the construction of ecosystems with dense and diverse mixtures of useful species. And SynecO culture is a farming method with more than 200 edible plant species, which self-organize to create a bountiful ecosystem, from which we obtain multiple harvests and profit from other ecosystem services. And we utilize emergent ecosystem functions to replace conventional interventions. So there's no plowing, no fertilization, and no chemical treatment. Next, please. And such a high level of biodiversity requires technical support for the assessment and management of huge ecological complexity. And we have an exploration interface for the biological interactions based on big data that allows us to enrich the introduction of edible species and strengthen positive interactions within the ecological network. Next, please. It usually demands intensive expert knowledge to perform such analysis. But we developed an artificial intelligence that can scale up such assessment using raw images. And we can also construct a three-dimensional virtual ecosystem platform for effective communication through online support. Next, please. And using these technologies, we are promoting SynecO culture and augmented ecosystems throughout the world. And here are the top priority areas we consider important based on the current state of biodiversity loss and industrial interest. And for the rest of this presentation, I will introduce some ongoing projects that are developing in these areas. Next, please. So here it's in Africa, and the environmental crisis is a common threat in sub-Saharan Africa. I conveyed the knowledge of SynecO culture in the semi-arid region of Burkina Faso in the Sahel in 2015. Next, please. And throughout the pilot experiments of 3 years, the SynecO culture field remained covered with lots of edible plants compared to the reference area without any intervention that remained bare. Next, please. Actually, this was the reference plot and SynecO culture field that I was explaining. Next, please. And we had a significant local economic impact that this small farm could actually make strong life support for the whole village. And the productivity was extremely high, as well as the product quality. So we collaborated with local government to scale up this project. Next, please. And so far, we have held 6 symposia on SynecO culture in the Sahel. under the support of UNESCO Unitwin program and established an NGO for the propagation of SynecO culture on a continental scale. Next, please. And today, we have the engagement of civil societies such as NGOs and universities, which form an open collaboration network. And without external funding, we already realized more than 10 training farms in 8 African countries. And SynecO Inc. is also working with them to provide certification for SynecO culture farms. And you can also visit our booth at this COP. Just at the side of this building, there's a booth 16 that shows more details on the SynecO Culture Africa initiative. Next, please. And we are also working on the automation of SynecO culture by combining with the production of renewable energy and robotics. And this year, a collaborating company, Sustainagy, and in collaboration with Waseda University, started an initial experiment in Kenya. Next, please. And other than Africa, China has a great potential to turn into nature positive. And for the last few years, SynecO culture has been rapidly propagating through the efforts of Sony China. And all production sites and the entertainment sites of Sony actually introduced SynecO culture as a part of CSR activities. And it is even growing into businesses in collaboration with local farms and communities. Next, please. And Sony China is promoting environmental value through SynecO culture. And this year we had 2 expos in Shanghai, which attracted more than 11,000 audience and more than 100 million views on national media. And actually 97% of visitors reclaimed environmental activities as an important reason for their product choice. So there is a huge potential for the adoption of nature positive solutions there. Next, please. And this is another example from South America. And local producers and international suppliers of cacao are seeking ways to make the current production of cacao more sustainable and make the local community more resilient to climate change. And in this pilot project in Ecuador, we have transformed a monoculture cacao farm into SynecO culture that comprises more than 200 edible plant species. And it produced not only an equivalent amount of cacao, but also 25 tons per hectare of non-cacao crops. And we can see, well, there is also an alternative way for cash crop production. Next, please. Now let's focus on the city environment. I participated in the committee of this World Economic Forum report that examined the nature-related risks in the urban environment. It says almost half of the economic activities are at risk of severe disruption if we do not transition them into nature-positive ways. Next, please. And in Tokyo, there are increasing risks with extreme weather events such as heat islands and strong rains. So we started the experiment of rooftop SynecO culture garden on top of a building. It not only showed a mitigation capacity for heat and rain, but also provided an essential platform for environmental education. We created the learning kit for augmented ecosystems, namely SynecO portal on the far right, in which we can learn about biodiversity and ecosystem functions by creating a small augmented ecosystem. Next, please. The SynecO portal is actually deployed in several schools in Japan through Sony's education program and consultation by SynecO Inc. And we expect to engage more service industries such as education into nature positive activities. Next, please. We also focus on the healthcare industry, especially in the aging society like Japan. And we have collaborated with a rehabilitation center for elderly patients and established a program that includes rehabilitation activities in the SynecO culture field. And it showed significant amelioration, and we have initial medical evidence published in the Humboldt Institute book. Next, please. Now we have a general model that links biodiversity with our healthcare cost, and we are providing composite service to first augment the biodiversity towards a safe level, then explore its utility through multiple usage of ecosystem services, including personalized lifestyle medicine supported by medical data and AI. Next, please. So through this presentation, I hope you become more convinced by this picture now, and compared to natural ecosystem that is usually conserved out of human intervention, augmented ecosystems have multiple leveraging points, both for human and ecological health. And essential human activities such as farming, energy production, urbanization, education, and healthcare can at the same time contribute to the biodiversity and carbon fixation by building augmented ecosystems. And today we are using up to 1.7 times of Earth's regenerative capacity of the global ecosystem. It is called ecological footprint and is considered a key indicator of sustainability in the Dasgupta report. And if we comply with nature positive solutions, such as augmented ecosystems, there's still hope to keep our ecological footprint within the planetary boundary. And I projected a forecast here, and it showed we need to gather our effort to transform about 2 to 4% of our GDP each year to be derived from nature positive solutions. And we would be self-sufficient within 1 Earth's capacity in 10 to 20 years. I think this is the big picture that we all have to keep in mind. To achieve such a global goal, and only acting within Sony Group is not sufficient, and we are extending our multi-stakeholder activities to become inclusive of other companies, NGOs, universities, and public sectors. All these efforts to mutually contribute to the establishment of what I call natural social common capital. And I hope we have a chance to collaborate on such a perspective soon. And I hereby acknowledge the collaborators who contribute to this project. Okay, thank you for your kind attention. And for more information, please visit our website. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Funahashi-san, for your interesting and provoking presentation. And then I want to, one thing I want to ask you is, in your presentation, you mentioned about the demonstrational experiment in the middle of the city, Roppongi Hills in Japan. And do you think that the technology like SynecO culture could lead to increased corporate value through, for example, increased in tenant value?
Okay, that most of the investors would say actually, and which is a bit different from the developers. And the top developers would say they want the unique value for their urban environment, not necessarily the additional value by putting the ecosystem, because they want to create a new culture which attracts young generations, new people, a variety of people, which all self-organized economic activities, which make eventually the city richer or make more sustainable. And it's not by saying, okay, we have a variable ecosystem that we can add more value on the real estate. It's more like we have the existential value of the unique ecosystem, something that is really unique. And for the first time, through maintaining it, we can actually pull out many, many additional values. So what I see through the conversation with the top developers in Tokyo is that they are for the uniqueness of the city, and they are for the uniqueness of ecosystem. And we have to drive several aspects of ecosystem service from that existential value. And I hope I answer your question.
I understand very well, and then I appreciate your honest and clear explanation. And that makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Super interesting. I just missed at the beginning, like, what is the heart of the innovation? Is it like AI mixed cropping analysis, or what is the innovation at the heart of it?
Well, actually, AI is just a fancy outfit, and the real part is really to exploit the capacity of ecosystems. So nowadays we have only the usage of ecosystem as a kind of physiological monoculture cropping, so which is based on the optimization of a single species, and which is of course a great achievement. I'm a scientist. I totally understand this rationale. And at the same time, when we talk about the conservation, it is on the trade-off, the human activities against the natural recovering capacity. And the key idea is to go beyond this trade-off. We have to merge the conservation activities and human activities together to build at the same time high biodiversity and high economic profit in a sustainable way. And it is only done through looking scientifically at how ecosystems is self-organized with biodiversity support. And this was the most tough part to establish this project. And then for the optimization part, we have a lot of ICT that could be employed for that purpose.
So you sort of identify a landscape and then optimize for both agricultural production and biodiversity using particular modeling techniques.
I can say it's quite under-optimized in the sense of mainstreaming biodiversity. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dominic-san, for your question, and thank you very much, Funabashi-san. So that please give me again. Thank you very much. And then I would like to welcome Mr. Dominic Ware, the Executive Vice President of WBCSD, also took time out of his busy schedule. Dominic-san, please come to the stage. Oh, this.
Which button do I use?
PDF.
No, but just to click the slides, which button do I use? Okay. That didn't work last time, did it? Right, so, okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, well done, everyone, for still going at COP. Very good. 11th of December, in case you've lost track of time. I really appreciate the two previous presentations, well, the three previous presentations, the two videos and the speaker. And also really appreciate Minister of Environment of Japan and Hamashima-san for the work that you've done to realize the G7 Alliance of the Nature Positive Economies. What I want to talk about a little bit is not an innovation so much, but as a sort of collective action of business engagement on nature positive. The World Business Council for Sustainable Development. I'm the EVP there, and we've lent in quite heavily onto So I pressed that one each time. Okay. So we've lent in quite heavily on the nature-related action work. So WBCSD, it's a network of about 230 multinational companies, all committed to sustainable development. There's membership criteria for this group. That's on climate action, nature action, and tackling inequality. It's about $14 trillion of revenue and about 18 million employees, if you add it all up. It's not perfect, but it's a sizable group. So if we can shift that kind of group towards a nature positive outcome, that's a good contribution. It's CEO-led, and it's the only unique business platform which is focused on sustainable development. It was born in 1992 at the Rio Earth Summit. Nature is really at the heart of these activities. We obviously work very much on climate and very much on tackling inequality, but nature is really rising up the agenda for business awareness. And you're probably quite aware of these sorts of factoids. The one I quite like, because we're at the climate COP, is we can't kind of get to net zero or beyond if we don't also address the nature issue. About a third of the potential of emissions reductions is in nature. So it's not just that we have a nature conversation, so we have a climate and nature conversation. And of course, for those of you who work in the space, you can't have a climate or nature conversation unless you talk about people and the people in the landscape. So climate, nature, and people all interconnected. And that means that there's a lot of business interest in this issue of nature and economies. You've heard of the Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosure, and I know that the Ministry of Environment in Japan has been tracking that quite closely, which means that many businesses are now getting interested to prepare for incoming policy and regulations and are trying to identify the risks and material impacts that they have to be able to meet those regulations. But also, as we've just seen here from these excellent presentations, there's a lot of opportunities in the investing in nature and nature innovation issues. For example, biomimicry, for example, nature-based solutions, for example, insetting along supply chains. And that's quite important because this diagram relates to climate. For those of you in the business community or in NGOs, you know that we're asking businesses to undertake material assessments of their risk, to set a target, a science-based target in climate, increasingly an SBTN, a science-based target in nature. Once you have a target, you need an investment plan, a strategy, like our friends here from SynecO. What my new innovation, which requires an investment plan, will kind of have a big impact. but then you need to account for the impact. For climate, you have a greenhouse gas protocol. We don't quite yet have anything for nature that works. And then we need to disclose. And we have things like the ISSB, the International Sustainability Standards Board, which does indeed have guidance on biodiversity. But the point is to be really kind of robust in terms of showing the capabilities of the business community. We're going to need to build something like this, not only for climate, but also for nature. And it's not just the piece of the jigsaw around accounting, investing, investment plan, and disclosure. It's also being able to link that to the transformation strategy of the company and to the financial markets. So there's a lot to do in terms of the wider transformation ecosystem to help companies, like we just heard, go quicker, faster, and bigger. And I'm sure these are some of the things that you would recognize as obstacles in the space right now. That is why, over the past year, the WBCSD internationally, including with many leading Japanese businesses as well as others, created the roadmaps to Nature Positive. These are foundational documents which look at kind of how you undertake your materiality screening, how you identify targets in key priority areas, and how you kind of build towards disclosure. These roadmap documents are very, very practical. Businesses said, okay, let us undertake this in line with TNFD, in line with science-based targets, and see what the methodologies would be that allow us to assess materiality and allow us to see what robust targets are with the data that we have. It resulted in a suite of products which were launched alongside TNFD launch at New York Climate Week. So the orange document is a very, very practical guide for any business at any stage of maturity. You can see the QR code in the bottom left, but if you download that orange one, that gives you everything you need to know in a practical way to start your journey to Nature Positive if you're any kind of company, big or small. But then we have some sector ones. So the green one is for the agri-food system. Then we have for the built environment and for the energy system. And again, these are like kind of 20, 30 companies who really work this through in a practical sense. And these are guidelines that are consistent with TNFD and consistent with ISSB and consistent with SBTN as they stand. We're also delighted to have undertaken a TNFD pilot, again, in a very practical way. So I would commend you to take the QR code, download those documents. And if you're interested to see how you might apply that to your company or value chain, this is the toolkit that you need. And if you're interested to see what businesses should do, this is the toolkit that you will need then to provide guidance if you want to ask a business, how are you doing? We did that in conjunction with friends from Business for Nature and the World Economic Forum. So in fact, you'll see that there are about 12 different kind of sector levels of guidance. The orange one that I showed is the generic one, but the point is that across different sectors of the business community, there is now material available for companies to start going down these roadmaps. So unlike in climate, which took about maybe a decade and a half to figure out how we do carbon accounting and how we might go on our climate-related journey, the materials are all very rapidly available now in the nature space. And we hope that this will keep up with some of the innovations that we've heard in some of the earlier presentations. So that's a very, very quick kind of breeze through the roadmap to Nature Positive Foundations. We are delighted at WBCSD because this provides a business underpin to the G7 Alliance for Nature Positive Economies. That's a political governmental group. This is the business foundation of how you get to Nature Positive. The two together provide that public-private package, which will hopefully create investments and policy support to allow great businesses like we just heard taking off. And I'm also absolutely delighted to say that during the COP, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development has become a member of the G7 Nature Positive Economy Alliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dominic-san. And then, yeah, I'm so pleased to hear that the WBCSD had became a member of the G7ANPE. And then I have one question to you. Yeah. And as you mentioned, WBCSD became an G7ANPE member. So do you have any vision for future collaboration within the G7ANPE in terms of these roadmaps?
Yes, absolutely. what is unique about the Japanese G7 presidency to create the G7 Alliance for Nature Positive Economies is it's created a club of governments who want to go down the nature positive roadmap, which means that simultaneously, as we've created the guidance for key sectors, built environment, forests, agriculture, energy, as well as generic guidance, we can bring these two things together in collaboration such that policies and financing, which might help great companies like yours accelerate at scale into multiple markets, can really move faster. As I say, it's taken us about 2 decades to get where we are on the climate-related framework for target setting and investment and accounting and disclosure. We really don't have that time. So we hope that this collaboration between the World Business Council for Sustainable Development and all of these companies working on that guidance with the G7 Alliance for Nature Positive Economies can really make this thing move fast and connect not only with G7 countries, but open the door for emerging markets and developing economies. So I really welcomed and noted your points about some of the emerging market developing economy opportunities for this, because we can't afford for this work to be seen as almost like a richer country club working on biodiversity, when in fact this is something that should be open for everyone. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the legacy that the G7 Alliance for Nature Positive Economies can create with future presidencies and leading businesses. We now have about over 100 who've since now joined this. So you've got a huge amount of market capital, innovation and potential to drive forward that collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing your exciting vision about the collaboration. And I must say that we started the discussion with Italian government about the next year's G7ANPE activities. So I'm gonna develop your proposal or suggestions with them. Thank you. Then thank you very much, Dominic-san. Please give him a big hand here. And I'd like to welcome Mr. Aiba from the Keidanren Committee for Nature Conservation. Also kindly extended his stay for this session. Aiba-san, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And may I show the slide of mine? Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, and my name is Sakawa Aiba. I'm chair of Subcommittee on Planning of Keidanren Committee on Nature Conservation, KCNC. And actually, I'm working for Toyota, and the Toyota is member of WBCSD and supporting Dominic-san's activity also. And here I'm also as a JAMA representative to COP28. But today, as a chair of Keidanren Committee on Nature Conservation Planning Committee, and I'd like to explain the activity of KCNC. And this is also explaining the integrated structure of Keidanren's environmental activities. Keidanren Japan Business Federation is a comprehensive economic organization, and the membership company is comprised of over 1,500 companies from Japan. And Keidanren believes that it is important to address 3 major global environmental issues in an integrated manner, rather than separately. So Keidanren is promoting GX, green transformation, as a solution for climate, and also the circular economy, CE, and also Nature Positive, NP, is in the integrated manner, so maximizing synergy and minimizing trade-off. The KCNC is a key player in promoting nature positive economy in Keidanren's activities. So, okay. And the KCNC is a sister organization of Keidanren, which was established in 1992, about 30 years ago, the same year as the UN Conference on Environmental Development at Rio, so-called 1992 Rio Earth Summit. So since then, we are doing mainly three pillars of activities. And the first one is support for NGOs through Nature Conservation Fund financial support. And the second one is policy recommendation to the government. And the third one is awareness raising among member companies. And in this regard, KCNC released the action plan for Nature Positive in June this year against the backdrop of the adoption of Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, GBF, and the National Biodiversity Strategy for GBF formulated by Japanese government. In accordance with this action plan, we intend to expand the work of Japanese private sector on biodiversity issue and create a good example to lead the international community. And first, I'd like to explain the support for NGOs. And we started this support 30 years ago, and since then, more than 1,700 projects we have been supporting, and totally 5 billion yen. And mainly in Asia, but it spread into the globally, and many in this year, this Middle East and so on. And also we started the new project and the so-called COMDEX. And this is, I'd like to explain, it's based on the community development and the knowledge management initiative. And this was launched at the COP28 last December in Montreal to promote sustainable use of natural resources based on the concept of Satoyama. Satoyama is originally from Japanese word that means coexistence of nature and people. And for this initiative, we decided to make a contribution of $3 million in total in collaboration with Ministry of Environment of Japan. And regarding policy recommendation, and we are supporting TNFD activities. And regarding the launch of TNFD recommendation in September, Mr. Nishizawa, chair of KCNC, sent a congratulatory message in which he mentioned that TNFD recommendation will be supported by many Japanese companies. We also discussed with this issue on this issue with Mr. David Craig, co-chair of TNFD, and Mr. Tony Goldner, executive director of TNFD, how to increase the understanding of the TNFD recommendation among Japanese companies. And our effort to promote TNFD include what we are doing as a role of co-convener of TNFD Consultation Group of Japan, which was formed in June 2022 to help Japanese companies understand the TNFD framework. Since the phase of beta version, we had held lots of events related to TNFD in cooperation with TNFD task force members from Japan, and to share the knowledge about scenario analysis and also case study, based on the real cases tried by Japanese companies. And also, we are supporting government activity and to promote Nature Positive. And the Ministry of Environment established Nature Positive Economies Study Group as a forum to analyze a wide range of nature positive related issues to Japanese economy. And the Ministry of Environment Government of Japan plan to formulate a strategy and policy action for nature positive economy by the end of this fiscal year, the March 2024. And actually, I myself participated in this study group on behalf of KCNC and support Japanese companies to promote nature positive activities, and also how to think about how to overcome the barriers from private sector's perspectives. Awareness raising. And actually, one of our activity to raise awareness of nature positive as so that we co-host this G7 Alliance on Nature Positive Economy Society event. And as Hamashima-san explained, 9 very informative presentation we saw today, and Shimizu or Sumitomo Chemical or SynecO was made, and we have learned a lot. And okay. In the case of business or GBF project, actually many Japanese companies are doing many activity to support nature positive issues. And Japanese Ministry of the Environment and the KCNC identify and share Japanese companies' good practices that would contribute to GBF and on the website. And we showed 83 case studies and presented them on our website through videos and show some slides. And also, we are encouraging companies integrate biodiversity into their business operation. So to support that, Keidanren set the Keidanren Declaration for Biodiversity Conservation, which was announced in 2009. And number of companies that agree with declaration is increasing. And also, we dispatch many missions to international conferences, such as the mission to COP15 of UN Convention on Biological Diversity in Montreal, Canada, last December. And to gain global insight and disseminate our initiative and to the world. And we also sent a delegation to Geneva this October to capture the overseas trend of nature positive and to disseminate nature positive effort by Japanese business community. We participated in the IUC and Leader Forum and had a bilateral meeting with international business or environmental organization to gain insight from them, and while introducing our activities by member companies. That's all my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Aiba-san. I have one question for you. KCNC supports UNDP's Satoyama initiative, as I mentioned in your presentation. Could you tell us a little bit more about your aims or thoughts on it?
Thank you very much, Hamashima-san. Actually, in our action plan that I explained, we support COMDEX through the Keidanren Nature Conservation Fund. And I think that support is one of the most important efforts for us to contribute to the GBF. And also, we think for Ministry of the Environment, this is one of key projects to GBF. And as one of contributor, KNCF can participate in the project steering committee of that and discuss the implementation of COMDEX project. There, KCNC gets involved in the management of COMDEX together with UNDP and the Ministry of the Environment, Government of Japan, and the CBD Secretariat. And by supporting that activities, we hope the UNDP's expertise in nature conservation and also its extensive global network in developing country will help us to make more effective activity and a more effective use of our funds. And this will lead to more effective contribution to the GBF and the 2030 nature positive and through our activity. That's our expectation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your impressive response. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Mr. Aiba-san. Please give him a quick hand. And then we'll have one more presentation online, but however, Dr. Corvaro from Italy, who's gonna give closing remarks, has to leave now. So for important negotiation meetings, so we're gonna ask Dr. Corvaro to give a kind of a closing remarks now. Yeah. Sorry, Katya.
Sorry, but you know, COP is a bit tough moment, and I am jumping to a stage to another. It's not a good thing, but it's COP. I call COPlandia, so you can have an idea about what happened. So thanks for the invitation. I am the special envoy for climate change of Italy. The challenge of sustainable transition represents a very extraordinary opportunity for investment, in particular, that can increase welfare and social equity at the center of business priority. Climate change is an issue, but can be also an opportunity. The Ministry of Environment and Energy Security participates together with other institutions like Banca d'Italia and Consob and the stakeholders from the financial and insurance sector in the table on sustainable finance established at the end of 2022 and chaired with the Ministry of Economy and Finance. The table will carry out a series of research projects and working groups aimed at understanding how to improve sustainable finance, private resource mobilization for the Italian production reality. In particular, the table intends to fill the information and regulatory gaps in order to facilitate the use of sustainable finance tools. And this is extremely important because it is very difficult for developing countries to access to these funds. Also, the experience in issuing sovereign green bonds, which began in March 2021, also demonstrate Italy's commitment to expanding sustainable finance instruments. In this sense, Italy shows that it is an active part in the current processes at the European and international level, which aim to improve and strengthen the role of the financial sector, public and private. Remember that private, it is necessary to achieve the target of Paris Agreement. At the European level, both the adoption of the Environment Delegate Act and the adoption of the CSRD on financial reporting represent fundamental developments for sustainable finance and climate finance. Developments that Italy wants to support and promote. At the international level, with the upcoming Italian G7 presidencies, Italy intends to continue to stimulate information exchange under the G7 Alliance for Nature Positive Economies. G7 Alliance for Nature Positive Economies can be a useful tool to integrate the climate objectives and the objectives of the global biodiversity framework, to effectively dialogue sustainable finance, climate finance, and biodiversity finance, both public and private, involving production sectors and, moreover, all stakeholders. Finally, we emphasize that this process is as a great opportunity, both for the financial and productive system and for the country system as a whole in terms of stability and economic and social growth capacity. Thanks again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Corvaro. We look forward to the Italian presidency next year, the G7. And then good luck on your negotiation.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Katya from OECD, Dr. Katya Karas. Yeah, she's here. Okay. We have Dr. Katya Karasakis from OECD Online. She is the team leader of Biodiversity Program of the OECD. And thank you very much, Dr. Corvaro. And then we, as the G7 presidency this year, asked her team to analyze the Nature Positive Economies. And today she will be presenting her view on Nature Positive Economies so far. Dr. Katya, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me, and it's a pleasure to be with you there virtually today. It's always a pleasure, in particular, so happy, in other words, to see that at the climate COP, there's also attention and momentum rising on the issue of biodiversity. Given also how strongly interlinked they are and the need to address both in tandem. So this presentation, and I'll go through it quite quickly, I understand we're running behind time, is on what is needed to transition to a nature positive economy. And thank you very much to Japan, who has asked the OECD, invited the OECD to provide a report on this issue in their context of the G7 presidency.
You're welcome. And Katia, can you make it full screen if you can?
Yes.
Thank you.
There.
Yes.
So just some context again, very quickly. As we know, all economic activity depends on biodiversity and on natural capital. And given the global trends on biodiversity loss, we are seeing growing risks to human health, well-being, and our economies. All these sort of economic issues have been very well crystallized also in the Dasgupta review recently and a number of other reports over the past few years. We've also seen political momentum rising on this issue across a range of different international settings, one of which is the G7, for example. In 2030, the G7 Nature Compact stated that our world must become nature positive, in addition to net zero for climate, and commit to take actions that are nature positive. As we know, in December 2022, under the Convention on Biological Diversity, we reached a landmark agreement on the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, where one of its missions is to halt and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030. So given that, we do need action to transition, swift transition and inclusive transition to a nature positive economy. In terms of the request from Japan from us, the key questions given were, what does a nature positive economy mean, both conceptually and in practice? And looking also to focus specifically on the private sector in this context, as well as what are the key obstacles to transitioning to a nature positive economy? And finally, also to consider what are the key actions that governments can take to address these obstacles and so as to make this transition faster, more effective, and foster nature positive outcomes as soon as possible. So just as some context, I mean, the nature positive sort of concept came out in 2020. It was a call to, in a sense, mirror the net zero goal for climate emissions. Since that time, we've seen, as depicted, the initial one as depicted here below, with the bending the curve loss and reaching net positive by 2030. Since then, we've seen a lot of momentum, a lot of use of the term, and also different sort of definitions or descriptions that are emerging. Broadly speaking, a nature positive economy is one that realizes nature positive outcomes. And in order to ensure the environmental integrity of the term, it is important to get a better sort of consensus and understanding on a clear common goal, what the timeline is, what the baseline is from which one can monitor progress against this, consensus on the scope of the term nature positive. Is it biodiversity? Is it broader than biodiversity, encompassing other elements of nature? Sometimes these terms are used interchangeably. Sometimes they're used in a sense, nature implying also the non-living aspects of biodiversity. And also important to ensure that whatever this common goal is, that there is alignment at the global level, at the national level, then coming down to the sector level, and the company and project level. So ensuring that we're all moving in the same path when we're referring to the term nature positive. Just some very brief examples of types of initiatives that are emerging and that tend to align with this concept of nature positive. At the national level, for example, the UK has set up its UK biodiversity net gain legislation. The objective is to ensure that wildlife habitat is in a better state than it was before the development. It is due to apply from January 2024, where new housing, industrial or commercial developments need to achieve a minimum of 10% biodiversity net gain. And this applies to both the public and private sector. And then in terms of other more specific private sector initiatives under the Science-Based Targets for Nature, for example, a number of like 17 pilot projects underway, including H&M, Caring, Neste, and several others who are working with SBTN to set targets for nature, assess their impacts on nature, and work through that to have net positive impacts. Turning to the obstacles for achieving a nature positive economy. So irrespective of what the very specific term means, it does mean a much more ambitious effort towards addressing and halting biodiversity loss. And they're generally sort of intrinsic obstacles in our economies and with regard to data, et cetera, that need to be addressed. So irrespective of the definitional aspects, there are certain areas and where further action is needed. We've outlined these here in 4 general categories. The need to align economic incentives. So given that biodiversity often displays these public good characteristics that the value of these ecosystem services are not reflected in market prices, we have negative externalities. So these need to be better reflected in our economic decision making. In terms of data and information, metrics and measurement, data gaps in terms of, for example, the location of assets and supply chain sources. Sort of challenges in terms of too much data, too little data, how to extract the most useful data for the particular audiences or stakeholders that are working to address these issues. And hence also, and related to that, lack of transparency and integrity of reporting. Also, in terms of moving forward at a global and a strong momentum at the global level and also at national level, concerns with regard to potential competitiveness and distributional issues, as well as other enabling conditions such as lack of sufficient finance, underinvestment in nature positive technologies, and siloed approaches to the nature, climate change, and circular economy issues. So I'll just very quickly go through a couple of these, given also the time constraints. But for example, in terms of aligning economic incentives for biodiversity, instruments such as biodiversity relevant taxes, fees and charges, tradable permits, environmentally motivated subsidies, these are all types of instruments that help to reflect the true values of biodiversity in decision making. And yet we've seen here, based on data from the OECD's Policy Instruments for the Environment database, which tracks data from more than 120 countries, that the number of countries that have been adopting these types of incentives over time has sort of plateaued in the recent years. So still much scope to scale up these instruments to ensure that the true values are reflected in decision making, which means the private sector has stronger incentives to address different issues. And on the flip side of that, also the need to reform subsidies and other incentives harmful to biodiversity, all of which are also reflected in Target 18 of the Global Biodiversity Framework. I won't talk too much about data and information because we've heard this from several different presentations before, but we have a lot of new initiatives, strong initiatives such as the TNFD, the Science-Based Targets for Networks and others that are working to look into these and to address these. Governments can take further action to encourage business and financial institutions to take smart targets, so specific, measurable, actionable, and time-bound targets, and further encourage the assessment and reporting of information related to impacts, dependencies, risks, and opportunities. And of course, to share outcomes across countries, across companies, as this information becomes available, so we can build up on the emerging evidence base and work even faster to reach these nature positive outcomes. in terms of competitiveness and distributional issues, working together, promoting dialogue, and also devising targeted policies to address any concerns, any distributional issues that may arise, and also developing compensation policies in addition to sort of economic instruments to address the multiple different impacts. And finally, the need to scale up both public and private finance for nature, different ways to do this, sort of taking multiple pronged approaches. And finally, also the need to harness synergies and mitigate trade-offs across both or sort of three areas: biodiversity, climate change, as well as the circular economy. Given that though there are synergies, there are also certain trade-offs in certain cases, and we need to make sure that we're all working together in a cohesive way to ensure that synergies are maximized and we're working as quickly together as we possibly can. Thank you. I'll stop with that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Katia-san. And although you kindly pressed your presentation maybe, but we were running out of time and we cannot have a Q&A session with you. I'm sorry, but I must say that I was delighted that you reminded us that the role of the government should be the reforming incentives. And in other words, I think it is the economy that we should aim for is the one in which protecting nature is less costly or more profitable than destroying it. Thank you very much, Katia-san. Sorry. So the session is over. I hope to see many of you at next G7 ANPE meeting under Italian presidency. Thank you very much.